Slaying Sunnah, Abu Ishaq al-Shatibi's concept of Bid'ah in al-Iʻtiṣām, McGill University, 1999, Montreal, Canada, Asif Saifuddin Jahar, Chapter 2. Number 1. Al-Bid'ah al-Haqiqiyya, Real Bid'ah. Like his predecessors, Shatibi defines Bid'ah Haqiqiyya as innovation, which is not attested by the Quran, Sunnah or Ijma'. Such innovation is categorized as unlawful. For, if it was not approved by Ahl al-Ilm, the people of knowledge, either in the universal or in the particular sense. For him, there is no concession in the constraints of real bid'ah, as elaborated above. No attempt is made to make it permissible or to associate it with lawful indicants. As for the claim that bid'ah can be good or permitted, he sees it as fundamentally erroneous, in that it either contradicts the indicants of the law, or it is not attested to in the Quran or the Sunnah. Bid'ah Haqiqiyya applies unreservedly in the domain of ibadat, worship, since this area of law was regarded as God's own stipulation, even though it may contain some rational provisions. The goal of worship is not to perform an empirical function, since its effect is quite general. His elucidation of the field of real bid'ah, however, is not extensive, for he merely approves the verdict of his predecessors and affirms their discourse by tying it into the Quran and the traditions of the Prophet, as well as legal theory. As he states, the subversive nature of Bid'ah Haqiqiyya has been amply defined in the textual evidence and its treatment by the pious ulama. This allows him to devote fuller attention to the subject of Bid'ah Idafiyya, relative Bid'ah, which is more tenditious subject. 2. Relative Bid'ah. For Shatibi, this consists of two categories. First, there is innovation rooted in a textual indicant. Indicant means a dalil, an evidence, which can be regarded as good only insofar as it does not result in unlawful bid'ah. For instance, the innovation introduced by Umar al-Khattab regarding congregational prayer on the nights of Ramadan may be counted as an acceptable innovation. The second is innovation based on ambiguous evidences, or no evidences at all. The second type is a censured and rejected type of bid'ah, says Shatibi, since it is based merely on speculative justification. These two types of relative bid'ah create a quasi-unlawful bid'ah which resembles the Sunnah on the one hand, and one that is similar to real bid'ah on the other. Shatibi assumes that every ambiguous act for which there is a ruling, whether innovative or not, can be categorized as relative and should therefore be avoided. The prohibition against dealing in ambiguous matters, mutashabihat, he contends, is a cautionary measure against this. Thus, refraining from doing so is preferable to the danger of falling into real bid'ah. An example of this would be abstaining from the consumption of meat which is suspected of having been unlawfully slaughtered. This would be preferable to its consumption, however, whatever the truth may be, Shatibi insists. In this example, the ambiguity of the case is isolated as the important factor, since refusing to exercise caution in the relevant case traps the subject into acting. She would effectively be perpetuating bid'ah. Shatibi finally indirectly advises the reader to avoid such traps by practicing three things. The first is suspension from the case, tawakkuf, if at least two of the indicants of the liability are not expressly mentioned. The second is caution in conjunction with the search for the truth, which is based on clear indicants, when two parties of ulama reach a contradictory hukum on the lawful and unlawful nature of the case. Finally, it is only in following that which is stipulated and ordained in the Sunnah of the Prophet that bid'ah may be avoided. In al-Iʻtiṣām, Shatibi frequently employs the ends of the Shari'iyya, maqasid al-Shari'iyya, as a tool to develop the concept of bid'ah. As long as the performance of worship, especially non-obligatory worship, is not made a habit or a long-standing cultural practice, the act is lawful. On the other hand, takhsis, particularization, such as designating the time for a non-obligatory act of worship when none is stipulated by an indicant, or praying a certain number of times on each occasion, or fasting a certain day of the month, should be regarded as creating an additional Shari'iyya, Shatibi declares. Tashri' Za'id. It is understandable that Shatibi would want to preserve the integrity of the Shari'iyya by keeping maqasid al-Shari'iyya at the forefront of his discussion. The aim of this is in turn to ensure the interests, masalih, of Muslims are preserved as much as possible in this world and in the hereafter. For God, Shatibi insists, acts according to the best interests of his subjects. states, he quotes, "The Sharia was instituted for the promotion of the good of the believers. The application of bid'ah in ibadah, whether recommended or obligatory, should conform to certain requirements and rulings. Its perpetual or temporal effect on a prevalent command can to some extent be regarded as either lawful or unlawful. On the other hand, it is lawful if it conforms to requirements and principles, and is unlawful if it deviates from its indicants on the other. As such, the consent of God, the Ridwan of Allah, was treated by al-Shatibi as an important part of worship." Stay tuned for many more parts.